Hi, everyone. I am Faisal, Assistant Curator for Island Southeast Asia at the Asian Civilisations Museum, ACM. Well, I welcome you to the fifth session of the ACM Talk series, generously supported by the Chris Foundation. This session is titled "And from Her Navel Grew Rice, Dewi Sri and Her Manifestations." And in it, there will be a dual presentation by artist, technologist, and educator Irene Agrivina, and myself with complementing perspectives on the topic. I will present first, followed by Irina. So without further ado, let me begin by sharing my slides. I would like to preface this presentation by saying that this might not be a traditional lecture, a research lecture. This research for me is just beginning, but I thought it would be an interesting and a good opportunity for me to put it out there and utilize the wisdom of the crowd, which is all of you, to see where it may take me. So at the end of this, I welcome not only questions, but any other thoughts and recommendations. So it's a selfish agenda on my part, and also a good opportunity for me to have a conversation with Irina. I will explore many images tonight dedicated to objects as well, dedicated to the goddess Dewi Sri. However, this specific research journey began with these objects in the ACM collection. Many of you might already know that they are cili figures from Bali, and they were part of the collection of the old Raffles Library and Museum, and was acquired in 1918. The cili are usually presented with other kinds of offerings for different kinds of Balinese Hindu ritual. And they often presented with other kinds of offerings such as food, flowers, and other leaves and lonta fabrications. They may be placed on shrines to serve as a sort of temporary residence for the goddess, namely Dewi Sri. Of course, sometimes they are meant to serve as offerings in the traditional sense and not a residence for the deity. These would often accompany harvest ritual in fields or placed in rice barns and granaries. They are also sometimes burnt in rice fields. So these are the three that's currently in the ACM collection, and this is the one that's most undamaged because of time. The word cili means small, nice, or cute, if you want to translate it loosely. It's traditionally woven from lonta and palm leaves, and in the form of a female figure, often with a fanning headdress or hair. There are male cili figures as well, and the ones I've seen are usually conjoined to the female cili in a pair. The lonta I've read are largely from the east of Bali, and these are the ones usually used for the making of cili figures, but this is information I've yet to be able to verify. And the cili are also traditionally representations of the goddess Dewi Sri, and she's a Dewi, she's a Hindu goddess, and she's worshipped in a few regions in Southeast Asia, namely Java and Bali. I'll focus more on her presence in Balinese Hinduism today, which is in itself very complex. The Indonesian government recognizes the Agama Hindu Bali or Agama Hindu Dharma, which is a monotheistic form of Hinduism. However, what is practiced in the communities may be more plural and more diverse. And they often involve local deities, which may not be found in other forms of Hinduism in, say, India, for example. And some of these deities are believed to have been older local deities who have been included into the Hindu pantheon and when Hinduism was introduced to this part of the world. So the big question is, who is Dewi Sri? She's sometimes also called Nyai Pwachi. She has numerous myths with numerous renditions. A popular one involves her being born from an egg that was a gift from the serpent Anta to Batara Guru, who became her adoptive father. She grew very beautiful, and there was the risk of her adoptive father being attracted to her, so the gods had her killed. And she was buried, and from the different parts of her body grew different plants, but from her navel grew rice, which is a very important food source in this part of the world. So she's viewed not only as the goddess of fertility, but also of rice. And the practices surrounding her are very much connected to rice and rice cultivation. Some scholars have argued that she could have been an older fertility or agricultural deity who has been given a Hindu name from Sri Devi when Hinduism arrived. And this sculpture is currently on display at the ACM Ancestors and Rituals Gallery, so do look for her. It's really difficult to be sure sometimes what these sculptures were used for. They could have been used for temple decorations, such as the base of pillars. However, we cannot forget that some of these types of sculptures were, in fact, made specifically for the tourist market. And this is a lamak. It is a form of offering banner. They would often be laid on shrines or altars and would be made of palm leaves and would be perishable, much like the chili. However, sometimes they are made to last and would be made of textiles, much like this one, which is also in the ACM collection. There are even some that utilize silk screen methods for making the images on the textiles. This variety reflects an adoption of development of how offerings are made. For example, I've seen images and photographs of chili figures made out of crepe paper and instead of lonta. And speaking of chili figures, the motif of the chili is often central, the central image of a lamak. As you can see here, it's an abstracted form of the chili. While the chili is often said to be symbolic of Dewi Sri, I think it's a good time for me to mention that it's not necessarily always the case. There are differing interpretations of the symbol of the chili, especially as a motif like on a lamak. And this includes not just among scholars and academics, but most importantly, among the Balinese communities. The chili may, to some, may simply represent life or human life and fertility, and not necessarily the goddess herself, the goddess Dewi Sri. We should also acknowledge that that there's a diversity of interpretations, and perspectives of such things, and not such interpretations of images, and not just assume a sort of homogeny even within a group of community, I guess. Yeah. Sometimes Dewi Sri may come in the form of these sculptures made out of Chinese coins being woven together using twine or rope. The coins are locally called Wang Kaping or Pis Bolong. The pair on the right is Dewi Sri and her consort, Sedana, and are from the Fowler Museum at UCLA, the Catherine Merchant Collection of Indonesian Art. They're often depicted together, Sri Sedana and Dewi Sri and Sedana, and often called Sri Sedana or Loro Blonyo. The lone one on the left is a Wang Kaping sculpture in the ACM collection. I've not studied it in person long enough to be sure who it's supposed to represent, if it's even supposed to represent Dewi Sri or Sedana. But there are features like the round earrings, for example, that recur in many of the Dewi Sri Wang Kaping sculptures. But I'm not ready to bet my life on it just yet, on this theory. And I've seen some Sri Sedana pairs of sculptures where the only difference between Dewi Sri and Sedana is that Sedana has the moustache. So when ungarbed and unclothed, to the untrained eye, it might be difficult to distinguish them. These are rings currently in the ACM collection from Java. The one on the right is actually on display at the jewelry gallery at ACM right now at level 3. So to look for it. These rings are from between the 8th to 11th century. Such rings would often have the word Sri engraved into them, sometimes in Sanskrit, other times in ancient Javanese. and they would be written in stylized forms using elements of the letters that make up the word Sri until they become abstract or pictorial representations and designs almost, often symmetrical and floral looking. And the word Sri would mean luck or fertility, but of course it could be associated with the goddess Dewi Sri. So one can argue that this is an example of the goddess in textual form, which in itself is quite interesting. These rings could have been worn as rings or even as pendants on a chain, and they would have been worn to possibly bring blessings to the wearer. So back to Bali. This is an image by Natasha Reichel from the publication and exhibition Bali Art, Ritual and Performance from the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco in 2010. So before harvest, some farmers would take some stems of unthreshed stalks of rice and bundle them together and place them in the rice fields, like in the image. And this would serve as temporary inhabitants for the goddess, obviously for blessings and for good harvest. This bundle is called Nini, loosely translated to rice mother. They are usually placed near the main irrigation inlet to the paddy field. So this is an example of a more ephemeral form or manifestation of or residence of the goddess Dewi Sri, much like the chili. Another example of an ephemeral form of the goddess is this rice mound, and it's if I have to be honest, one of my favorite forms of Dewi Sri. This image is from Francine Bincreft's essay, The Chili and Other Female Images in Bali. Sometimes before rice can be used for sacred ritual or using them to make offerings, offerings must first be given to the rice. So the rice would be presented in the form of Dewi Sri on an altar or shrine, and a coconut would be used to represent the head, 2 eggs as the breast, bananas and sugarcane stalks as arms and legs. And through this process, the blessing of Dewi Sri can be received and infused into the preparation of the offerings that will be made from this rice. In fact, I have a bowl of rice with me, just in case the goddess may be observing us tonight, this evening. Yeah, and I've also been interested and how we can acquire ephemeral objects, especially sacred ones such as this, which are consumed by and through rituals, with cases like chili offerings, which is technically not meant to be kept. Does keeping it change its context? I mean, obviously, yes. Then again, any object brought into a space such as a museum goes through that process. And I believe an alternative approach could lie in how we collect ephemeral contemporary art. For example, collecting multiple iterations, future iterations, which an artist or maker may reproduce when necessary, and allowing the object to perish each time. And ACM has done similar approaches to exhibiting the ephemeral. In 2015, for example, monks from the Ngor monastery made a beautiful mandala at the museum lobby. So these are things you could think about with regards to some of the more ephemeral manifestations of Dewi Sri and how we can bring her into spaces such as museums, so for people to observe and to view and appreciate. Yeah, that's the word, appreciate, sorry. So back to the chili. As I mentioned, it's a form of offering. So, and there seems to be a division of roles for the making of specific offerings of meat or the panjor, for example, which are these tall curving pillars, often made by men, and offerings of flowers and the chili, for example, often made by women, often led by a tukang banten. And she's usually the wife of the padanda. The padanda is a priest, but I don't like to use the word priest for Balinese Hinduism because it can mean such a spectrum of religious occupations. Anyway, the tukang banten would oversee the making of these offerings. There are, however, situations in which a tukang banten, upon certain circumstances, such as a husband's passing, could become a padanda. That said, there are also instances where young unmarried women can also become pedanda. So this has proven slightly difficult for some scholars and academics who prefer cultural rules and roles to be carved out strictly in their minds, of course. I, on the other hand, appreciate this complexity and even fluidity of cultural and gender roles whose rules are very opaque to the uninitiated. Um, And while doing this research, I came across this wonderful 2012 dissertation by Lily Duan entitled, it's a long title, From Ethnographic to Contemporary, How an Artist's Interview May Direct the Study and Conservation Treatment of a Balinese Figure, where she interviewed an artist and chili maker, Ni Nyoman Kawiwati, who shared that a chili that is meant for ritual offerings would have internal organs made out of lonta, hidden in the skirt form. These are examples of them from the dissertation. She explains that the internal organs are vital for chili to be able to be used as offerings, part of what makes them sacred. And without these internal organs, they cannot serve as offerings, just merely decorations. She even suggests that she believes that a chili in a certain museum collection is in fact without these internal organs. And this brings up a few very curious thoughts. Was some of the chili and some of the museum collections, ACM included, made by offering makers with very clear intention that they do not serve as sacred offerings, sans eternal organs? Could this be a loophole on the part of the maker to prevent a sacred object to be brought into a non-sacred space or context? And would a chili with organs and without technically be two different kinds of objects with very different functions and contexts? And what does it mean when a museum, hopefully unknowingly, labels a non-offering chili as one made for offering in their text or labels on display, for example? And also, do the ones in the ACM collection have internal organs? However, we also need to acknowledge, of course, that there is a diversity of beliefs and practices in almost every religion. So this might not be practiced by some communities, these internal organs, but they do bring up quite a few thoughts, and one of which is the long history in Asia, Southeast Asia especially, of objects, even sacred objects, made by locals, but not for local use or consumption, instead made for and to suit the tastes of non-locals or Westerners with very specific perceptions of Asia, often rooted in Orientalism. Tourist art is a very good example of this. Another interesting case is a group of wooden Balinese Hindu statues currently in the collection of the Tropen Museum. They were commissioned by a Dutch curator for a Paris wool exhibition in 1900. And this is a statue of the goddess Uma from the collection. Often large wooden statues of deities in Bali would be parts of pillars, architectural supports at temples, for example. Yet these statues were freestanding. They were in fact actually mostly copies or reproductions of stone statues that were found in Bali. So maybe being made of wood allowed for them to be able to be shipped to Paris easier, maybe. But yes, these objects were not made for the use or needs, religious or otherwise, of the locals, but for the Dutch and the exhibition in Paris, yet were presented as representative of Bali. Some scholars have questioned whether such objects or even tourist art can be viewed as authentic. My view is that it is, because it was made by the locals, and commerce is very much part of culture and tradition. But the context of these objects, especially when in a museum collection, need to be made explicit. Sadly, this isn't often the case. Some of these objects have been presented as representative of local practices and users, and not objects made for commerce or export. Sometimes these objects are so old with very little information, it's really hard to find out, which is why community voices and community narratives are very useful in these situations, and research on the community, led by the community, is very valuable. So the big question, do the chili in ACM collection have internal organs? Were they made for ritual offering? If they were they picked up from shrines, for example, and was permission given, or were they procured before they were being used as offerings? So silly old me thought if I shine a bright enough light through it, I could see something through it. Sadly, they were too opaque. In the research by Lily Duan I mentioned earlier, they actually x-rayed a chili. So maybe I would have to do the same. So for now, this chili is like the Schrodinger's cat, with and without organs all at once. So I'm sorry for that anticlimactic reveal. Anyway, I thought I'd end with this painting by contemporary Indonesian artist Dodi Artawan. This piece is titled Loa Melos 1, and it's actually hanging in the office of our ACM director, Kenny Ting. And it's part of a series of hyper-realist paintings looking at tourism in Bali and the culture and tradition of alcohol there. I won't go into too much detail or make assumptions on the artist's intentions, but I do find it interesting that whether intentional or not, the artist has made references to Dewi Sri through objects and images that have traditionally been connected to her. The bottle caps are of rice wine brand Dewi Sri, a local and old Balinese brand, whose branding obviously is inspired by the goddess. The logo also features a chili image. You also have rice, obviously, and even the bottle caps echo the Wang Kaping. So the relevance of Dewi Sri is not only alive and thriving, it's even evolved and become expansive, much like many images in Southeast Asia, to be relevant even in a field such as contemporary arts, something that our guest speaker would touch upon. So that is the end of my presentation. And this is just a bibliography. So if you would like to, check it out, you can just go back to Facebook and you can pause it. But for now, that's at the end of my presentation. So I thank you and I welcome Irene Agrivina. She is an artist, technologist, and educator who works at the intersection between art, science, and technology, founding member and current co-director of House of Natural Fiber, HONF, in Yogyakarta. She's engaged in collaborative cross-disciplinary multimedia actions responding to social, cultural, and environmental challenges. She co-founded the XX Lab, an all-female collective focusing on art, science, and free technology in 2013. Her projects have been presented internationally at IFVA New Media Art Festival, Hong Kong in 2017, the 5th Anyang Public Art Project, South Korea in 2016, the Arts Electronica Festival in Linz, Austria in 2015, and the Pixel Art Festival held in Helsinki, Finland in 2013. So without further ado, Irina, please.
Thank you so much, Faisal. Dr. Pes, I'm very happy to be here in this difficult situation, and I hope all of you are healthy and safe right now. And yeah, so my background is like Faisal said that I'm artist and technology based in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. That's why actually all my works is actually related also to the community in here and the environment in here. So I will just start to share my screen. You can see it.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. So I will tell you about my works, but before and then and how my work is related to Dewi Sri. So Dewi Sri in here is placed as the goddess of love and fertility, like Faisal said, and she's very well known as the rice goddess and the protector of the paddy plants and rice fields. So there are a lot of myths, so there are a lot of rituals in here in Java and also around Indonesia and around Southeast Asia as well. She's well known here as Dewi Sri and Man Quan Kau or Pho Sop in Thailand, Nang Khosop in Laos, Ponagor in Vietnam and Cambodia. She's a very beautiful goddess that fall from the sky and fall down to earth, and then her body become the variety of plants. So Dewi Sri in Indonesia is personified as rice emerged through the plant between water and earth. That's also, you can see later that is really connected to my works. And afterwards is also another interpretation as symbolic emerged that Dewi Sri was the consort of Dewa Vishnu, God Vishnu, and he can only carry out his duties as a protector with Dewi Sri by his side. That's also, I think, become the presentation of Dewi Sri and Sedana in Hill Koloro Blonyo and Mimi and Mituna. And logically, life would only exist on Earth if there was fertility. So she is very important in here. And she is well known also as Mae Pho Sop in Thailand. Mae Pho Sop is addressed by the title of Mother Mae, who provides food for her children, mankind, us, human, and those people are her children, and they treat her with respect as they would their natural mother. And there is another story of this goddess, which is called Nang Khosop in Laos and Myanmar. So there is a hermit that live in the forest, and then there is Nang Khosop as a trait, and then she become a maid who serve as the soul of the rice. And then the hermit let Nang Khosop live in the rice field, where then she nourished humans for many generations. But however, there is a king who brought a famine on the land by storing the rice that was due to people to acquire luxury goods for himself. And then there is old couples of slaves made the now old hermit in the forest, and seeing that they were famished, the hermit appealed to Nang Khosop to feed them. But she refused, unaware that the king had been keeping her rice, and she felt that she had given the people sufficient food to survive. But the hermit then slaughtered her, it's a bit brutal actually, and cut her into many little pieces. So the pieces of Nang Khosop become different variety of rice, and the old couple then went on teach humans how to cultivate this new rice in small grains that we eat now. And I think I made mistake. So there is a goddess of Yan Ponagar. She called Yan Ponagar in Cambodia and Vietnam. She sent from heaven to instruct the Champa people how to develop agriculture, the kingdom's main foundation. And for this contribution, the goddess was profoundly referred by the people of South Central and Central Highland regions as the mother of life. But according to the story of people in there, that this goddess actually have 100 husbands and thousands children, and where actually that children teach them how to grow rice. And there are a lot of rituals and celebration to preserve in Southeast Asia and in Indonesia as well. That still, until right now, we still do the rituals. And that now, because of the pandemic, as I don't think there are a lot of rituals. We do it at home. But yeah, there are many rituals as well as meat according to her presence. And this actually kind of like a mantra in Bugis that very well known in Bugis people that taken from Surat Lagaligo, the Lagaligo book. It was said that this book is solely older than Mahabharata and Ramayana. I have the translation in here. It's called Sangyang Seri. Then where San Riwu is pregnant, and in 3 months of her pregnancy, the fetus is being blessed by ceremony, and 7 months is exactly the womb. Then be born we Odan Riwu. She lives only 7 nights, then she died. Then people look for the wilderness for her, the pure and wild one, to be her grave, her final resting place. And 3 days from her death, her father cries, missing his dead daughter. He went to her daughter's grave. He finds out that the place is full with paddy plants, yellow, red, and yellow. Some are white and some are black. Some are blue. The entire white valleys, long fields, high mountains filled with yellowing paddy. Manurung body is shaking. His heart trembled to see the landscape, full of yellowing rice. Batara Guru stands up, reached the rainbow. He went up to the upper sky and he arrived in the land of Rua. What is bothering you, Your Majesty? The place is full. Some are yellow and some are black. There are red ones and blue ones. There is no empty space, all fulfilled. As for the words of Patotoi God, there is the child named Sangyang Sari. Your daughter is the rice. So in Sulawesi, in this Bisu, among the Bisu village, there is a tribe called Bisu. So Dewi Sri is a little girl actually that fall from the sky and then her body become a rice. And in Thailand, there is this famous poet actually that sometimes they also the children sing it. It's called Come Mae Pho Sop. Glory, glory, blessed is today. Come Mae Pho Sop, bless goddess. Come ye may. Come now the ban, come ye stay. Let thy spirit not go away. O rice goddess, come up into the rice bin. Do not stray in the meadows and fields, for mice to bite you and birds to take you in their beaks. Go to the happy place to rear your children and grandchildren in prosperity. Come. And this is there is what is called mantra called Suksma Kawakas. Usually this mantra is there is this chimat. I don't know if you understand what, sorry about my English. I don't know what is chimat in English. So it's usually also written in this chimat. It's called Tembang Liring about Suksma Kawakas. So Suksma Kawakas is remain and become a way of worship, while true Suksma is remain to become the true messenger of God and to be a true guide and knowledge of mind. Only Suksma Kawakas is dominates the whole universe. Only the truth of Suksma leads all humans and creatures. All power is the power of Suksma Kawakas. It is in the true Suksma, while we humans are in the power of the true Suksma. So among Jawa and Bali, this is very famous Suksma Kawakas. That's also present Dewi Sri and the relation between Dewi Sri on earth and then the god and the goddess in the sky. And this is from Saracario's Dewi Sri, is from the testament of Dewi Sri. There is this point, this text, all the pets get rid of all the prey. All is well for the visible and invisible pets. Hopefully God will give us clothes and food that give us blessing and strength. I will use it to give sincerely everyone in the world. If you want to ask, pick everything. And then I will come to my work. So my work is inspired actually by the relation between human and on earth and wherever in the sky above. So I call it entangled beauty, a perfect marriage. And we will see about the connection about my work and then Dewi Sri. So it based on my artistic research, I try to find connection of two different particles that entangle on based on Einstein's theory of quantum physics. The artistic research is actually looking for possibility of showing how theory works and capturing the dipole-dipole interaction from a water fern called Azolla and a bacteria called Anabaena. So the inseparable marriage of Azolla and Anabaena create a photosynthesis process that able to produce biofertilizer, water purifier, livestock feed, eco-friendly textile dyes, and biofuel. While through actually the process of this photosynthesis, Azolla is also able to get its nitrogen fertilizer directly from the atmosphere and draw down amounts of CO2 from it, and this helping reduce the threat of climate change. Actually, Azolla, this water fern, Azolla, is very popular in the past. That using by the farmer from Southeast Asia as a fertilizer. But now it's changing because they use chemical fertilizer, and then they don't use it anymore, this Azolla. But why I'm interested in Dewi Sri. So despite the technical and engineering research, an anthropological research about the connection between human culture and the environment was done. So the myth about the goddess of fertility that known as Dewi Sri in Java, Mae Pho or Pho Sop in Thailand that we saw before, Nang Khosop in Laos and Ponagor in Vietnam and Cambodia, a story about beautiful goddess from the sky that fall down to earth and her body become varieties of plant, and very well known as the rice goddess and the protector of the paddy plants and rice fields. And I'm also interested in the rituals and celebration to praise her in Southeast Asia as well. A lot of myth. Some are very brutal, some are very nice and sweet, and some very some is very touching. And so my project is trying to seek the relation between Earth and outer space using photosynthesis and quantum physics process of Azolla and Anabaenas, because the Azolla and Anabaena is also the pioneer of the Earth, and they never separated. They have to live together, and because of them, there is oxygen in the Earth. And that's almost a similar story with the Dewi Sri as the symbol of life and fertility and love. This is very romantic for me, the relation between Azolla and Anabaena, and how it's also related to the rice field and farmers actually in Southeast Asia. And on the other hand, what I'm trying to do is to bring the goddess of rice alive by represent her as in physical representation of Azolla plant. And this Azolla and Anabaena known as the pioneer plants and microorganisms of the earth, while the goddess fertility also known as the one who brought the plants and living environment to the earth. The connection between earth and sky, the myth and rituals, Linga and Yoni, art and science will be was made by represent the goddess as the source of life, the source of food and energy, and a sustainable prototype of worship shrine, which is I made a photobioreactor from Azolla and Anabaena, but also this is also a symbol of life, like Sedana and Dewi Sri also, because they are unspareable. And so why I made this, because I was born and raised in Java in Indonesia, where the practice actually of science, myth, tradition, and art sometimes mix into one. And while in some cases in certain areas in Indonesia like Java, the practice of science sometimes called mysticism and or shamanism or rituals or magic. And my artistic research is try to find the connection and nexus between art, science, and technology and mythology. And it was begun with some tradition from my basic knowledge of mysticism, rituals, and tradition from my home country into modern knowledge of science, such as quantum physics and quantum biology. So I think so far that is what I can present about my work, and then we can continue in the discussion. So I will give back my time to Faisal.
Thank you so much, Irina, for the very beautiful exploration of the goddesses. I mean, one of the biggest reason I was excited to have you give a talk was because your research and your work, namely A Perfect Marriage, show what I have believed for a very long time, which is that science and religion are two very different languages that can sometimes say very similar things, maybe not exactly the same, but rather similar. One can be used to understand the other, and you're using Dewi Sri to communicate, especially, I think you mentioned it to me before, that this was how you communicate to farmers about the Azola and Adabena. It's a good example of this, is using of one language to explain the other. It also reminds me of the Shiva Nataraja statue at CERN that was erected where the cosmic dance itself was used to be symbolic of the movements of subatomic particles in quantum physics. So yeah, so thank you so much. I invite the audience to ask questions in the questions chat box thingy. Sorry, I'm quite a Luddite, so I'm not sure what they're called, but just put it in and we'll answer. But before I get to the audience questions, maybe I will ask you a question and you can, of course, ask me a question. Well, my first question is, from your work with the communities and the farmers and the agricultural community, do you know how they feel about sacred objects, especially images of Dewi Sri, being brought into a museum or a gallery? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, they don't understand why. Because for them it is like their ordinary tools or life. It's just a part of their life, so they don't see as an art, they don't see as something like important. It just be part of their life. Like even so, I made like first I don't really relate with this Dewi Sri, so I just said, yeah, actually you can use this azola for this, for a biofertilizer, and then another thing that is possible, and it's like why that is important, and then I have to make an approach with anthropological thing, and then it makes sense for them. But then when I said, yeah, this project is presented in the gallery museum, they like, why? But this is like our tools, like ordinary thing. It's just same like a chair. That is important, like for them, but at their home or at their rice field. But yeah, actually, I also want you to help me to answer them. Why that is important, like for museum, like collect it, like to show. So I can also tell them that's what you do at like the simple object like that you have is actually important.
Well, I can't speak for all museums or all curators, but for the ACM, one of the amazing things that I find is that a lot of the people working here do understand the value in the everyday. A lot of the objects, especially from Southeast Asia that we present, are everyday objects. And often the way we approach connecting with our visitors and audience is to find that middle ground between someone else's culture and yours, and that middle ground usually is the everyday, what you do every day, what you eat, how you dress. And in the end, I think that's the biggest takeaway of all. The everyday is special, you don't have to wait for situations where things are profound, things are festival, things are grand. And that's why we bring such objects into the galleries. Of course, the beauty aspect of these objects. Dewi Sri is beautiful in every single manifestation. She is, because she's a goddess of beauty, right?
Yes.
So that's one thing. But yeah, it's really the everyday aspect. Yeah. Okay. I think we have some questions. Let's see. Let me address, okay, the first one. Someone commented, it reminds me of corn dollies, I'm assuming the chili, of which were made for pre-Christian European harvest festival, which were made of wheat straw. Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this impetus of making things out of agricultural plants to be representative of deities of harvest is almost universal. I wouldn't go as far as saying that there is the source and origin of this universality, but it seems to be a universal impetus. This one maybe you could also help me out with, Irina. So Ng Isheng asked, was a similar goddess ever worshipped in Sumatra or Malaysia? Do you know of any in Sumatra, for example, similar goddesses of rice?
Yeah, I think it's different name, but I think because of the one that I saw you before, the Sangyang Seri is actually Bugis, which is I think also related also the whole Melayu. And I think there is similar goddess, but I think like different name. Maybe in Batak or in Sumatra, it has different name, but yeah, almost same. But they also see that this rice goddess actually as a child because it can grow later. So not goddess, but a child as a goddess.
Right, right.
She's a daughter. She's a girl.
Oh yeah, I mean, yeah, I think like, and you brought a very good point. I think when we think about just goddesses as image, it limits it because I think there's a whole spectrum of divinity and sacred beings that are connected to rice. So yeah, I'm not very familiar with the rice practices of Malaysia or Sumatra, but in terms of sacred women and sacred feminine, yes, definitely we have quite a few in this part of the world. So maybe that element they do, you know, they do recur. I mean, in Singapore, for example, we have a host of shrines dedicated to different women figures. We even actually have a supposed German girl shrine here. So, you know, a little girl as well. That's quite fascinating. But yeah, we also have Kramat, which, you know, they have it in Java as well. And we have some female wali figures here. So, but yeah, specifically with rice, Ishang, I'm sorry, I don't know any. But I will try looking it up and maybe I'll get back to you on that. Okay, let's see. This one for Faisal. Okay, what okay, let me see. I'm struck by the interesting binary of more permanent and impermanent forms of Dewi Sri. Do we see this with other gods and goddesses in Bali and Java? I think it's a lot of them are connected to actually the goddesses. But I'm sure that there would be, but a lot of them are connected to goddesses and not just Dewi Sri, but there are goddesses, say in Bali, that have a more ephemeral forms because they are connected to the land. So I don't know whether that's partly the reason. So we have Dewi Danu, which is the goddess of the lake of Lake Batur, for example, and the goddess of the land, which is Dewi Pertiwi or Ibu Pertiwi. But the thing about the interesting thing about Balinese Hinduism is that there is, even within objects that are more permanent, there is a form of transientness in the objects, because the gods are not meant to remain in the object all the time. They enter and they leave, and they enter and they leave when they are invoked. So yeah, but lots of these traditions are for lots of gods and goddesses. So in fact, like the chili is also used as offerings for non-Dewi Sri gods as well. But yeah, with regards to whether they similar, say like the rice form for like maybe a male god. I'm not really sure as of now, but yeah, like I said, it's a very infancy stage of my research, but I will look into that because it is quite interesting phenomenon. There appears to be a lot of similarity and parallelism in the practice of Balinese practice of Hinduism. Could you expand on this? I'm not sure. I'm not quite sure what this question is asking, but if you could paraphrase it.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, similarity to what exactly?
To Hinduism or Balinese practice to Hinduism, because they based in Hinduism.
Yep.
And but I'm not sure if I can help to answer this, and this is the right answer. But the one in Bali is based on Hinduism, but the one in Java is actually very mixed. The one in Java is mixed between Hinduism and Buddhism and then Muslim. So the rituals that right now that we do in Java is based on Muslim. So they pray in Muslim way, but actually the Muslim doesn't give offerings. But so that's very mixed. So the Muslim people in Java is also manusia. So they praise also Dewi Sri. So they have a small like home, small bed. Even they have small bed in it in their home. Every farmers, that's the place for Devi Sri, even though they are Muslim, and they give offerings and they give very rituals. So I think it's mixed between the practice of Hinduism in Bali and then Muslim and Buddhism in Java. I'm not sure if I answer it right, but I hope I can give insight.
Okay. He also added whether the rice practices, since you mentioned about the Muslim influences, whether it's related to Sufism.
Yes.
Do you know? It is.
Yes.
Okay. This one is specifically for you. They tell us more about your creative choice of the plant species, Azula and Annabella, in your metaphysical framework, macro and micro perspectives.
From my, it's a bit difficult, yeah, because it's also related between microcosmos and macrocosmos, and the relation actually between human and the universe. But I think that's why I'm very interested to Devi Sri, because it's actually a symbol of how actually human is also related to the outer, to the universe, to the bigger, I think like a bigger thing that is unknown. And that's also, but for me, I saw it like almost the same way with the science in physics, and how actually Einstein like explain about entangled beauty, which is we have something like the same somewhere that is also related to us, that make like dipole and dipole relationship. And then that's how energy come from. And then that's also the same way with the people in here like explain about Devi Sri. So it's between microcosmos and macrocosmos. And then I think like for us as human, that's like give us a hope that there is we still alive. So we have to be alive because we are a part of this whole universe, and we are still exist, and we are still here. And I think I'm answered the question of the framework of macro and micro perspective.
Yeah, and I think I mean, reading the write up of that, because I didn't have the pleasure of being able to view the artwork, but reading up on it, it makes perfect sense. You know, like the relation between the organisms and the Azula and Enabena and then Dewi Sri. Yeah, so it was genius, I think. This is from Sujatha Migama. For you, Irina, I'm amazed by how Dewi Sri is worshipped nearly everywhere in Southeast Asia. Do we see this variety of forms of Dewi Sri in other countries? Maybe, yeah, whether you see a variety, say in, I think this is a question, whether you see a variety in Java and how they are practiced and how she looks like.
You mean like how it looks like?
Yeah, whether like the
worship.
Yeah, whether there's like a variety or does everyone practice worshipping Devi Sri the same way?
I think it's different. Yeah, but it's in Champa and in Java, some part of Java, like East Java, is almost the same, because I think they have a relation during the Majapahit era as the symbol of the god. Sorry about the sound. It's in here is 5 times. There is azan Maghrib. There is an azan. So it's right now. Very noise. So sorry for the noise. It's part of the worship. And yeah, it's very variety actually. And the interpretation is very various. But I think one that for me, because I got a research grant that time from NTUCCS, so I'm able to go around Southeast Asia and learn about how they worship this goddess and how their relation. But one thing that important is and the connection is she's the life itself. I mean, I think like people until now still worship her, and she's very popular because she's the life. She's not only the food, but she's the life. She's the symbol of prosperity, the symbol of fertility, the symbol of love, and the symbol of life, which is important.
Then maybe I'll just add to this question. From your study, I mean, you've studied quite a few of these goddesses. Do they all look the same, or do they look slightly different, or are they alike in some ways? In some ways, they look different.
A bit different. Like in Cambodia, actually, it looks like a very fat.
Okay.
Prosperous,
yeah.
But very rich fat mom. But in Java is very beautiful and like a deity and a bit like fairy tales. And in Bali, also very beautiful. And then I think in Thailand it's also the same. But yeah, in some part like Sulawesi is a child. So I think there are a lot of symbols like that's why I like this myth, because it have also flexibility, like according to your need.
Yeah. Exactly. And I mean the tying factor is they're all women. I think that's quite important. It says something about what we think rice and food it means, like you said, mother, right?
Yes.
Okay, I guess it's one. I think we're almost closing soon, so we'll just do one more question, and this is from Denise. So the question is, rice production is highly dependent on water availability. Is there a related rice goddess that is also water goddess of some sort? I'm not sure for Bali, but as I mentioned, there is quite a relation between Dewi Sri and Dewi Danur, which is the goddess of the lake of Lake Batur. And the Lake Batur supports the whole, quite a large chunk of the irrigation system of some of the paddy fields in Bali, the Subat tradition, and the water just trickles all the way down the mountainside and to the paddy fields. So there is a relationship, and all the way up the paddy fields towards the lake, there will be shrines dedicated to both, Dewi Sri and also to in respect to Dewi Danur. So there is a relationship together. In fact, some people go even further that there is almost in Balinese tradition, it's a trinity of Dewi Danur, Dewi Sri, and Dewi Pertiwi who represent the land. So you need land, you need water, and you need the rice goddess for you to have sustenance. But that's for Balinese Hinduism. Is there something similar for what you've researched on?
Can I add something?
Yep.
Yeah, but this is especially only in Java and especially in Jogja. We have this goddess like a queen, and we still believe that she lives in of the ocean. And
I know where you're getting at. Yeah.
She's the Nyi Roro Kidul that everybody afraid of her actually. And we even like the Jogja people still believe that she always the wife of the Sultan. And then if she's angry, we all dead. And actually it's, yeah, because and then we will have tsunami and there is no more Jogja. So we all praise her. and this is also like related about to Dewi Sri, but it's not also related because like this goddess live in the ocean and then all the river in Jogja, and then there is this this Dewi Sri, which is there is no actually connection, but that is strange. But we praise all of them.
Yeah, cover all bases, right? Make sure everyone's happy and will be happy.
Dewi Sri is more domestic.
Okay.
But this the goddess of this water, all ocean, all water in Java, is more like a queen that untouchable, but
Right.
very frightening.
Right. Because
like domestic, the mother of home, and then we keep it at home, like very close to us, and there is this water, this god of water, this goddess of water that live in the ocean, very frightening.
I find it interesting because my mother's grandmother told her about Nyai Roro Kidul, and then she told me. So this is an image that I kind of have grown up with, and I've always found her very fascinating. And so it's nice to know also that her stories have reached Singapore in some way as well. And I guess maybe that's a good place to end this, from one goddess to another. So I guess this marks the end of tonight's ACM talk. Thank you so much, everyone, for your questions. I'm sorry we can't have more questions and more discussions because it's pretty late already. And I would really like to thank our guest speaker, Irina, really for being so generous and sharing your knowledge with us. And on behalf of the ACM, I really would like to express not just the gratitude, but express our prayers are with you and your loved ones in your community right now. It's quite a difficult time, I know. And so you being here with us is really, we really will be eternally grateful, and thank you for that. I would also like to thank the Chris Foundation for its support of our ACM series, and to all our participants, please help us improve the ACM webinar experience by scanning the QR code on your screen, which will be flashed for a few minutes. And thank you so much for being with us this evening.
Sure.
Irina, could you stay in for a bit and I will have a chat
yes.
with you after that? Yeah.
Okay.